Hey guys, this is Ashley White, the owner of the Polka Dot Alley, and I'm so excited to introduce you to the Alley podcast. Hey guys, I am back. It's been a minute and we're excited to do this again. Things just got busy, no rhyme or reason. You know how it goes. So many ideas, so many good things to do, and so little time to do them. When we left off last year, I had come back from my European vacation with my mom for her 70th birthday. I filled you in on a lot of that um, fun. And this rest of the year basically was spent just kind of back to reality and back to work. So I am very excited for us to be back for our 18th birthday this year. PDA turns 18 in May, and it is such a wild thing to think about. And thinking about what I wanted to talk about for this first one back, I was really focused on kind of the highs and the lows of the last 18 years. How did we get to this point? What got us to this point? What should I maybe not have done in those 18 years? What could I have done better in those 18 years? So this may interest you. It may not. I promise in future episodes, we'll talk about things that do not revolve around me in the Polka Dot Alley. But I felt like this was fitting for this one. So in the very beginning of this podcast, I kind of gave you the initial info as to how PDA got started. And I feel like I could honestly do an entire episode on each section of the progression, really, of PDA. I never intended to own my own business. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Not that I didn't want to be one, but that was never a dream of mine. It was not something I had even considered or felt like I would know how to do. And when I say I fell into it, I really did kind of fall into it. You know, I was a teacher. I had a sewing machine. A friend asked me to make something. Other people saw it, word of mouth. More people wanted it. More people wanted it. Hey, maybe I should do a website, see how this thing goes. Came up with the business name on a whim within a 10-minute brainstorming session with my best friend. And that's kind of how the whole thing has progressed little by little. And here we are 18 years later. Never in a million years would I have believed that this would have turned into a career, that this would turn into not only my livelihood, but the livelihood for so many other people, that it would reach as far as it has. It's just insane to think of. And I am incredibly grateful and blessed and don't take it for granted for a minute. So, in thinking back, obviously we have to start with the positives. That's another whole episode for me. I feel like I've just been so focused lately on positive thinking, positive mindset, being positive, not bringing others down with negativity or negative thinking. I feel like more and more on the internet, that's something that we see a lot of, and it can really affect everyone else who's seeing it. So I don't want to lead this off with anything negative. I promise though, stick around throughout the episode and we'll get to some of my shoulda, woulda, coulda moments and what was I thinking moments. But for some of the winning moments, I can tell you right now, off the top of my head, my moments that I will always remember. I will never forget the first time I got an order on a website. At that point, I had been getting orders word of mouth from friends. Now listen, the first order was a family member, so maybe it doesn't count. It was my sister's mother-in-law. But I remember seeing the order come in and seeing that I had a real paid order without a discount on a website. They paid with their card. It just felt so real and so legitimate and so official. And I still, I was 27 years old. I still remember that feeling of just like, ooh, and looking back, what was that feeling? The feeling was hope. The feeling was optimism. The feeling was, could this become something? Am I maybe building something? Had no idea what I was building. I do wish, don't you wish sometimes that we could go back to our younger selves, a lot of times actually, and say like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Or, hey, maybe don't date him. Or, this is going to be okay. I think it would have been cool to be able to go back and say, pick a really good name. You're going to have this the rest of your life. But I had no idea. I didn't know to even hope as big as that. I was a teacher just kind of doing a side gig. But that's one big memory I have. That first website order, man, that was really, really exciting. I can't tell you what she ordered. I wish I could, but that in and of itself was very exciting. So, Tony Lucas, you may not even know this. You were my first website order. I am so thankful, and I will forever remember the feeling that I had that day. Another one. Early on in this, I was in charge of, not in charge of, part of my business that was huge for me was doing Greek items and bid day baskets. Towel wraps were the first thing that started the Polka Dot Alley. It was a huge, huge, huge seller for us. That was pretty much what I did in the beginning was towel wrap, towel wrap, towel wraps. I did bridal parties. I did cheerleading squads. I did individuals, grad gifts, sororities. I would make hundreds of thousands of towel wraps for you to put on when you got out of the shower. And that's what the entire business was built on. And in Texas Tech. I graduated from Texas Tech, business marketing degree. I lived in Lubbock when I started PDA, and I don't even remember how it got started, but again, I think I told someone word of mouth. I ended up selling bid day baskets. So essentially, the moms could order a basket that week while their daughter was going through the rush week, now called recruitment. Not knowing what sorority she was going to get, I pre-made a bunch of things. So I had pre-made a bunch of towel wraps for each sorority. Get this, checkbook covers, lots of different things like that, and had it all ready. And that way, the morning of when they found out their sorority, I was able to deliver from their parents a basket. Well, little by little, I sold, a couple the first time. The next year, I sold a bunch more, and they got so big. And I'm sitting here making and assembling all this in real time the week of. And it got so big where I had a waiting list. I couldn't continue to take the orders. I didn't have staff at this point. I remember my sisters coming in town, James, we're all back there in my little garage shop trying to get all these baskets done. And I remember having people beg, can I please get one for my daughter? And I was like, I can't, I won't be able to make the items. And I do remember that feeling of just like, wow, they really like what I'm doing. And there are more people wanting this than I can even give it to them. And there's a demand for something I'm doing. And that was a really cool feeling. And that was another moment that I think gave me the hope of, okay, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe I'm doing something right. Another one will forever go down in history. McCall Sanderson will always be in one of my, pivotal PDA moments. She was the sister of a student of mine, and every birthday, everything, she comes back and comments, I comment to her, but I will never forget. I had a sale, and this point was March of 2012, and I had a Facebook sale, and I posted a chevron dress from Mud Pie, and I was not doing any clothing at this point. It went wild. The good old days of everybody sees everything that likes your page on Facebook without having to pay for ads. Those days are over, but at the time, that was still a thing 13 years ago. And we sold so many of that dress. At the time, it was a number, I want to say it was like $10,000 that night. And it was just something that was like incomprehensible to me. I never would have thought that I would have just been, sitting there working on by myself, no employees, posting things to Facebook for people to take orders, up to that point, maybe I had sold, 6, 8, 10 of something. And people wanted that dress so bad, it went viral. That was my first viral moment before viral was even a thing, I think. And it was crazy. She came over with legal pads the next day. I was like, I need help. We sat on the brown leather couches on Vicksburg in my house, and we manually wrote down every single person's order, their email address, and one by one, we had to log into PayPal and send invoices to all of these people. And I want to say it took us a week to get all these invoices out, but I couldn't believe it. I woke up, James. I was so excited. And that really is where the PDA that you know and love now kicked off. Like that's when we went from being me, mom and pop, making things in my garage to I had to immediately get a warehouse. I had to start hiring employees because that wasn't a live, I apologize. That auction is what we called it then. That sale, I did them at that time every Wednesday and Sunday. And that live... Really? Welcome to my life, y'all. When you speak and do lives 24/7, you can't find your words and you just keep on going. But that sale got everybody liking our page, and it got us so much attention that when I had the very next sale a few days later, I sold a lot more stuff. So, it just was one of those domino effects, thankfully. But that's where everything changed. And that's where I went from being a stay-at-home mom working in a garage to, wait a minute, my not even 1-year-old, I have to start taking to Mother's Day out. I have to get employees. And it was kind of a do or die moment. Am I doing this? Am I not? And I think at that point, I had been working 4 or 5 years, and to have it finally hit was so exciting that there was no way I was going to slow that train down. So I still remember that night, and it was really fun. That's another thing too, is when you have one of those moments, when you own a business or, whatever it might be that you're looking at or doing, where it's, which way am I going to go? Which path am I going to take? Am I going left or am I going right? And I think, the whole reason I decided to start the business once it kind of fell into my lap was that I could be a stay-at-home mom. And when it got to that point and it grew, I had to decide, do I want this? Do I want to do this? Or do I want to keep it small? And man, did I want it. And I'm so thankful that I did, because no, I'm not really a stay-at-home mom anymore. And I never was. I put them into Mother's Day out in Montessori, as young toddlers. And then they obviously are not all in school now and everything. But I'm so thankful that I did what I did. And it's afforded us so many opportunities. And I've been able to be there so many more times than I would have been, hindsight 2020 as a teacher or what have you. So I definitely remember that one. That was a huge one. Some other really fun ones that, it's really hard because it's like there are some moments that I remember as being super positive, but they're coming off the back of something super negative. When my house burned down almost 2 years ago exactly from now, which is crazy, the PDA community rallied behind me like nothing I would have ever dreamed of. And we'll do a whole episode probably fairly soon on the fire, the aftermath. We still have things going on to this day, actually, that I can't really get into, but it's kind of just a never-ending thing, it seems. But our PDA family, my staff, my customers, our friends stepped up in just the most incredible and the most touching ways. It was something I wouldn't even be able to put into words, but I'm definitely going to try soon. So that's for sure going to be my favorite moment of just seeing the community that I built and feeling the gratefulness and being so thankful for on that side. Usually I'm the one running the group and I'm the one having to handle everything in the group. And so I don't so much get to be part of the group. And I know that sounds silly, but I feel like I'm kind of like overseeing everybody's things. And I'm not usually one that's like in the middle of the things in the group. And in that moment, I felt like just a member of the group. I felt like just a friend that everybody was trying to take care of and support and be there for. And it was just a really incredible feeling. So that's another one. I could tell you right now, when I say a positive pivotal moment, it's every time I'm in this warehouse. Rocky's behind the camera and she can attest to this. This warehouse is huge. Are there bigger? Yes, I'm sure there are. There always will be. We are not Amazon. We do not have robots. It's still a lot of people out here working. But when we moved into this warehouse a year ago, it blew my mind, and it still does. And when I walk through here, when I walk up the stairs to come up here to the office and I see row after row after row of clothing and of gifts and of inventory, I'm amazed. It's wild that I own it all. It's wild that I still do this, that I employ people. It's hard to remember that I'm a grown-up and that these are grown-up things, and that people count on me and depend on me. And it's a really cool feeling. And even though that could be seen as maybe a negative, it's not for me. It's definitely a positive. It's what keeps me going, is knowing that I've got other people that depend on me, and not just by way of employees, but also customers. There are customers who this is their friend group. This is where they go to have a good day. This is where they go to feel good about themselves. And I cannot be the one to take that away from anybody. So I feel like that's another. Listen, we're not going to even have one negative thing. And you know how exciting that is? I had planned on in this episode talking about the highs and the lows. And this is really something that I want to focus on is, first of all, I don't practice anything for this. I don't write anything down. I really just kind of speak from the heart. And as much as they probably wish I would, I don't. I just go with my gut and the words kind of fall out. And so when I first sat down here, my plan was highs and lows. But isn't that neat that the highs are so plentiful that I don't really have to even talk about the lows? And I will. I know we like the juicy stuff, we like the dirt, but there's just so many highs. And that's what comes to mind first. And that's what's rolling off my tongue. And I think if we make the choice to focus on that, you kind of forget the lows, you know? I'm so focused on being grateful for and remembering and recounting the good times that I'm kind of shoving those bad times away. And gosh, I'm grateful for that because I don't want to remember all those things. But anyway, so those were other good moments. Moving in here, having my sister Katie come work for me full time. Let me tell you, that's one of those blessings and a curse. Anyone who works with or is close to a sibling will know. She and I can both agree to that. We fight like actual cats and dogs pretty much every day. But also, I know that she loves me like no one else, you know, employee wise could ever love me. She's required to. And I know that she cares about the business as a whole. She's been here since the beginning and she's really good at what she does. And so it's very, it's very exciting to me. And it also makes me feel good to know that she feels wanted and needed in here and that she has a part of this with me. So I really love having her doing this here with me. That was a big moment for me when she was able to come on full time for years. I had talked about it and we didn't live here. And then she was having baby after baby after baby after baby after baby. And we just didn't know when it was ever going to happen. And so whenever that happened, I feel like that was a really good moment for me as well. Some of these are kind of silly. And if you're a business owner, you'll get this. If not, you won't. When we started using a payroll company, something about that just seems like legit and official. When we went to direct deposit, I was like, wait, we actually do paychecks that can go direct like that. That sounds like a real business. You know, I posted something on Facebook last night in my personal feed saying, does anyone else ever feel like it is so wild that we're grown-ups? I was in my hot tub last night after my live, which is kind of my post-live ritual. And I'm just sitting there and I can't explain why this happened, but I got out and I walked over and I got one of the towels. When I picked up the towel, I was like, this is so weird. I'm just out on this big back porch by myself and I'm picking up a towel that I own from the pool that I own. And I walked into my husband, he's sitting in our media room and I said, do you ever think it's so weird that we're adults? And he was like, no, what do you mean? I'm 48 years old. I said, I know, but this is the funny part. I said, I just got the hot tub and I was able to pick up a towel and y'all, James does the laundry. So he immediately goes, and you wondered, how did this get washed? And I just died laughing. I said, no, smarty pants. But in those moments, you're like, I feel like I'm 20 years old. You know, how do I have all this? How am I doing this? How did I get here? Did I just fall asleep and become an adult and people are depending on me? It's crazy. And the same goes for the business. You know, it's just like those things happen little by little by little. And so sometimes you don't really notice them. And then you turn around and you're like, wait, I was thinking this was a fun idea and sitting by myself in a little one-car garage, hand sewing and making things. And now I turned around and I'm in an over 20,000 square foot warehouse with 20 some odd employees that get direct deposit, by the way, on the 1st and the 16th of every month. And I've got an attorney and I've got an accountant and it's like, these are grown things. What's happening? So while yes, some of those things are stressful, instead of focusing on the stress that comes with that, I try to focus on what a privilege it is that I have that ability and that I have a team that I have to pay and that I have a building that we're able to flourish in and grow in. And so that's something really cool too. So many positives along the way that we've had. I could think of a lot too, staffing wise. This is something I think I kind of, alluded to or joked about whenever we did the podcast episodes with the staff members, when I kind of asked them their questions and this or that favorite things. But it's very ironic and definitely a lesson to me that I am not a good HR manager, that most of what turned in to my best hires were people that I didn't want to hire. And that has been the case with multiple employees. And it goes to show that does not need to be my job. I tend to, when interviewing, just want people who have my personality, which I think is kind of normal. I think people gravitate to people who talk as much as them or talk as little as them, are positive like them or not, whatever you are. I think you tend to maybe attract people that are the same. You have the same personality traits. And so when I'm interviewing someone who is totally opposite from me, maybe they're straight faced, they're super quiet, I'm like, don't know, don't think that's going to be a fit. And there have been so many like that that ended up being amazing for us. And come to find out, I actually do better with people who are not like me. So I've learned that now and passed that job on over to Stevie, and I have her do the hiring because that's just not something I need to be doing. But over the years, I've had so many employees that also when I'm thinking of the highs, I think of them. I really want to bring her back at some point, but Courtney, who managed my Lubbock storefront for me for years, I've had so many dreams about her lately, and I don't know why. We're Facebook friends. We text periodically. I don't know what it is that keeps making me think of her lately. Maybe it's just us turning 18 and knowing for so many years what a great part of PDA she was in our, kind of transitional years where we were moving into what we are now. She was there kind of on the cusp of that. And she was happy for us and she was happy for that growth, but she herself didn't really want to grow into all of that. She was like, I don't really want to do all the live selling. And she kind of liked it the way that it was. She liked her responsibilities the way that they were. And so at that point, she was ready to move on to something different. And she really just wanted to work with customers in a storefront. And that's where we were kind of not moving towards. And that's what she wanted to continue doing. So that's what she stayed doing and is still doing in a storefront in Lubbock today. And that's great for her at the time. I remember being so upset. Now looking back, that's what she needed. And that's one of those things that sadly you don't know when you're in something. You can't really see it for what it is. You can't see the diamonds in the rough. You can't see what it could become, or maybe that you needed that change. So I miss her a lot. But she was such a positive point for so long for us that I'm always really thankful and grateful when I have memories of her. And also, there have been other people that maybe they didn't leave in a great way, or maybe there was some kind of issue that for a time, though, they were a really positive thing for us and we grew apart, or they grew apart, or I grew, or whatever might have happened. And at the time, it may have seemed like this big, scary, hairy situation. And then looking back, it's like, oh, that's exactly how it needed to go, And I've been talking a lot with my 13-year-old daughter lately about how we thank God for unanswered prayers. And, when you're 13, life is a rough sometimes. And so she's just had a lot of little things coming up that I just keep saying, focus on the fact that there could be a blessing hidden in this. And there could be something around the corner that this didn't happen because you were making way for this to happen. And, when you're 13, you really can't see that. But at 44, I've seen it enough that I do know that now. And I do have faith in that. And I have hope from that. And when I think of all of the positives of the last 18 years, they far outweigh the negatives. The highs far outweigh the lows. There weren't many lows. And the things that were lows maybe turned into highs when I really look back and think about it. So I've had some really big moments. I don't think I've had our biggest moments. I think they're yet to come, or what would I still be doing here? And I think it's just really exciting not knowing what's coming, not limiting us to what I think we should be, or if I think we've already hit the highest peak, because I don't. I want us to keep climbing and keep moving and keep pivoting and seeing what can happen and what can come from that. And I think that's something to remember in general in life, whether you're a business owner or not, is you may be striving to get in shape, and then you get there and you think, well, this is as small as I'm ever going to be, or this is as fit as I'm ever going to be, or I'm going to run one marathon, or I'm going to do one triathlon. Who knows? Maybe you're about to become, I don't know, the next big thing. Maybe you're going to do more than you ever thought possible. Whatever it is that you're working on or you're striving to do, I think just don't put limitations on it. Don't sit and focus on the lows. If you do look back at the lows, let it be in reflection of how did we learn from this? How did this make us better? How did this make us grow? But really focus on those highs and focus on how do we get more of the highs, and what do we do to keep growing and to keep moving forward. Because one thing I have realized as I'm nearing a 45 this year, which by the way, I just read is past midlife, because odds are I'm not living till 90, and that's actually very depressing. So let's have a whole episode on that too. But is that I want to live my best years. I want to be at my strongest. I want to be wise with my time. I want to make sure that if I am doing something, I am doing something that is beneficial to whether it's me or my family, personally, financially, mentally, emotionally, something that matters. I'm not filling my time with nonsense anymore. And so I'm really trying to focus on those positives and what I need to do to get me to the next place that I want to go. So thanks for 18 years. Here's to the next 18. You're going to see this little old lady going live for you with all things cardigans and I don't even know. I guess actually I shouldn't limit us because maybe I'll be wearing crop tops, okay? Who's to say? You never know. We'll see.